On this episode, we compare Saltrow seed treatment performance against Olivo in reference to sudden death syndrome and soybean cyst nematode trials. Our sales team comes to Merchant Seeds headquarters for training every other month. They were here this week and are more motivated than ever to be your friend in the field. The comment period for Elite 27 is open. Make your voice heard by the EPA and leave a comment on the link in the description below.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman, and welcome to Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars, Ben, Turk, and Tommy, and a lot of new things to talk about this past week in agriculture, so we're going to start off with Ben. Ben, looks like you got a lot of papers there. What's going on?
As an industry, I guess there's a lot of rumors bouncing around about what's the best way to control sudden death and soybean cyst nematode. As we all know, we've talked about it 3 or 4 times in the program. We have switched our entire sudden death program from Olivo, which was a phenomenal product, to Saltrow, which we believe is even better than the Olivo. But some of the rumors and questions that we're getting is the Saltrow as good on soybean cyst nematode as the Olivo is? And we've had it explained to us a couple different ways, but our rep for Syngenta, the seed care division, sent us a nice little PowerPoint here on all the reasons why we think that Saltrow is as good as Olivo on controlling soybean cyst nematode. So I kind of wanted to walk you through the PowerPoint that he gave us. This PowerPoint will be in a PDF attached to the end of the Cup of Joe, or your opening Cup of Joe link there. So I was just going to walk through this just a little bit. The first page of the thing has, of the slides here, have the label for Saltrow. And it goes through and talks about the fluid ounces recommended, and we match all that 1.5 to fluid ounces for 100 pounds of soybean seed. And it talks about all of the nematodes that it protects against: soybean cyst, root knot, reniform, lance, and lesion.
That's on the Saltrow label.
That is on the Saltrow label.
The EPA federal label.
Correct.
So some of the claims saying that Saltrow's not very good on nematodes would be contrary to the EPA label, is what you're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So the EPA believes that it has significant control of those individual different types of nematodes, plant parasitic nematodes. It also goes through and talks about why the halo effect happens, because fluid pyram is 10 times more water soluble than adepidin, which is the active. The first fluid pyram is the active in Olivo. Adepidin is the active ingredient in Saltrow, and because it is 10 times more water soluble, that active ingredient pools in the cotyledons. It moves through the plant much faster, pools in the cotyledons, so that's why you get the phytotoxicity that occurs, and that is what stunts the plant, because it moves so fast through the plant. It pools in there, and it takes a long time for the plant to metabolize it when there's a high concentration of that active ingredient in the cotyledons of the plant. So
that's where you get that little burning edge around the cotyledons with Olivo, is what you're talking about.
Correct.
That's what they refer to, the halo effect.
Yep. And they also talk about one of the main reasons that they believe that one of the advantages that Saltrow has is because there is not that stunting. That plant can grow through much quicker. That plant can grow through the some of the soybean cyst issues and the fusarium problems with the with having the Saltrow on the plant. So they talk about average root length. It's about double on the Saltrow. They talk about root surface area is more than doubled on Saltrow, and the average root volume is almost tripled when you have a Saltrow and an Olivo comparison on both of those. So there's 17% more root tips, 118% more forks, which is any time a root divides into 2 different branches, and there's 107% more crossing. And why the crossing is important, we had a sales meeting this week, and what I was explaining to them why the crossing is more important. When you have 107% more crossing, that means your total mass, your total volume, your total root development means that those roots are crossing more often, and that means you have a more vigorous, full root mass for pulling nutrients and water up.
And there's some pretty good slides on the end of that will show that too.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why we've gravitated towards Saltrow. I mean, we were very strong proponents Olivo because it was the very, very best product. But we did notice some of this halo effect and stunning, and particularly when we had PPOs out there, seemed like we had more injury and things like that. And as a seed company, that we don't like anything messing with our seed, So that's why we looked very strongly at Saltrow. And it was also explained to me by a person that Olivo was developed initially for as a nematicide, found that it has very good control of sudden death, where Saltrow was developed for a sudden death control and found it had good control on nematodes. So they both were screened different ways and came out with kind of the same results, but it's just interesting in the development. But farmers have two good choices, and we just think that Saltrow has a little bit more of an advantage over Olivo because just of this one issue in certain conditions.
And Joe, I think on that PowerPoint there too, where we kind of saw in the past with some Olivo situations where the stand was a little thinner, and we were trying to figure out why that was, and I think it definitely shows on why maybe Saltrow isn't having the same effect on thinning of a population stand.
Yeah,
and you're leading right into my next point here.
There we go.
So it matches with what we say. The Saltrow piece matches with what we say that we can pull populations back.
Yeah.
Because the statistic they have here is at a $60 bag of beans, you're losing about 10,000 plants per that 60,000. We always encourage our customers to back their populations off. There's a $4.41 per acre yield advantage by not having to plant that extra 10,000 plants out there. Mm-hmm. So our customers can continue to pull their plant populations down to 130, 120, 110 if they feel comfortable with that. And they know they're not going to drop below the 100,000 threshold that we usually try to shoot for without losing any money. So you don't have to increase populations if you're going to be pushing.
So what you're saying, Ben, is if you plant the same population of Saltrow and Olivo, and the seed costs exactly the same, $60 a bag, the Saltrow would have $4.41 more plants out there in essence.
Correct.
In other words, the population would be equivalent to $4.41 worth of seed.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. The value, return on your
investment.
Value,
yes.
Yep.
Nematode portion of this, it doesn't just protect against soybean cyst nematode. It has several nematodes on there, and they're going to add more to that label as well. So if you look at the labels, you get more advantages than just soybean cyst as well.
Correct.
Well, reniform is a big one. Root knot, particularly in the South, in Mid-South where we market. So those are important nematodes to have some activity against. And we should make sure everybody understands now, if you're planting these products and you have, like, the ground is moving with nematodes, it's still a Band-Aid when you need stitches. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to help get more yield, but you still are going to get damage from nematodes because the seed treatment can only be active in the root zone so long because you're not putting enough volume on there to give you season-long control.
It's the closest thing to a silver bolt as we could possibly get right now.
So they've also had studies here where they're in heavy sudden death pressure, heavy soybean cyst nematode pressure. So this is like the 6th or 7th slide if you guys are following along or want to look at this, where they did this testing when they have 2,065 soybean cyst nematode eggs per 1,000 cc's in the soil. So that's a medium to high rate of pressure on the soybean cyst nematode side. And they want to explain that why do they see Saltrow's advantage? They say that from a crop safety standpoint, that plant being able to grow through faster and put more roots down and put more vegetative growth above ground, they can grow through some of the issues. And they also say that there is clear protection against sudden death and soybean cyst nematodes. So we have got some great slides here. If you have any questions on the slides, feel free to shoot me an email or call into the office and ask questions.
Another question I've been getting this week, Ben, that it kind of surprised me a little bit, but they said the questions are, what rate are we putting on? And I said the labeled rate.
Yeah.
There is only one rate for Saltrow as opposed to
2 rates with Olivo.
With Olivo, there's 2 rates. And so when they're saying, I'm giving you the full rate of Olivo, the full rate of what? For sudden death or for soybean cyst?
Yeah, because
that's really the question that needs to be asked. There's only one rate for Saltrow.
Yeah.
And we're putting on the labeled rate.
Exactly, because the STS rate is the highest rate for Olivo, and it's half that rate for just nematode control.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, that's a good point, because if you're getting the full rate, you better ask for nematodes or for
Sudden death.
when you purchase Olivo. But Saltrow, there's only one rate.
Yep.
The very last page is a very, very, very mind-blowing. The numbers are absolutely incredible. When you compare Olivo versus Saltrow in a very heavy sudden death pressure situation, go ahead and take a look at that, and those numbers are shocking. That right there ought to be the sales. I mean,
Those numbers are yield numbers, correct?
Yep,
from,
the yield
from
numbers.
research plots, right?
yep, and they're in a super high sudden death situation. They're talking about an average of 16.9 bushel advantage over Olivo, which is incredibly high numbers. So
It's almost so high it's hard to believe, right?
exactly.
And that's why sometimes some companies don't put the numbers out, because it's not always going to work out that way. But this is also a high yield environment. Soybeans, I mean, they're in the 70s, aren't they?
70s and 80s, yeah.
So when you get real high yield environment, the numbers are bigger too.
Picture's worth 1,000 words there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's good information, and we'll make sure that our customers and farmers can look at that data and draw their own conclusions and decide what works best for them on their farms. And one last note: why are certain companies selling Olivo and certain companies selling Saltrow? Some of it boils back down to supply contracts. Some companies out there, Merchant Seeds doesn't do that. We will not sign any long-term agreements because things are changing so rapidly. But some companies, in order to get a very good price, and in return for very good volume for the supplier, will sign supply contracts. So then that kind of forces them that they got to play in that arena only until their supply contract expires. So I don't know each company's situation, but I just know that exists in the industry. So that could be one of the reasons why certain companies are choosing one product or another. And we're not going to know that. Only the companies that are running their own businesses know that. But it should be known that in the industry, that's not uncommon to get a good price. You sign a supply contract, and then you're stuck using that product, whether you like it or not.
I think it's important, Joe, just for everyone to know, to be informed, because there's different products out there, and what's best for you may not be what others are trying to sell you, so to speak. So it's good to be informed.
Yep.
It could be the reason why we're seeing some of the rumors come around that we are, because people are stuck in a situation, so they're stretching the truth, trying to figure out. I think I'm stating the obvious.
Yeah,
they're stretching the truth to try to make their position look better.
Well, and at the end of the day, from any standpoint, from the farm or even from the processor who's treating the seed, Saltrow's a superior product to even treat with compared to the other.
And as far as how easy it is to put it on.
Oh, even the sledging up and everything else. And
a good formulation.
Absolutely.
A good formulation's like, we've always said that the formulation is just as important as the active. In other words, if that stuff all sticking to the side of the bin or to the seed treater, at the end of the day, the farmer's not getting his active material on his seed. What good is the seed treatment if you can't get it on the seed? If you think about it, seed treating is really, really hard to do, because you want it to stick to the seed but nothing else. How do you do that? So that's why it is a science, but it's also somewhat of an art too.
It's also very, very small amounts, and we put on so much per seed,
Right.
not per
Weight.
hundredweight.
Yeah, we apply all our seed treatments per seed, so we get the precise amount on each seed. So I think we spent enough time on Olivo and Saltrow, but this is stuff that just came out. We wanted to share it, and I think that's really important to give you some more additional information, and then answer some of the questions that farmers are getting out there in the field. Get a little bit of confusion, at least our viewpoint, and obviously the Olivo folks will have their viewpoint, and then look at both sides and decide what works best for you.
Yep.
Turk, you got some notes there. What's going on?
I just wanted to briefly talk about 2-3 things, but obviously a lot of the talk here very recently is the waters of the U.S. Legislation has been repealed to basically undo the damage that was done to the American farmers with with the water on their farm. Rivers and streams, public waterways, are still subject to a lot of restraints. But that track that you left in your field last fall because it was muddy, that's now got water standing in it, is now no longer subject to waters of the U.S. like it was before, or if there was a little puddle sitting someplace on your farm, it would have been subject to waters of the U.S. before. So they've done away with that, and that's really good news for the farmers. So the other thing I just wanted to touch on is USMC finally did make it to President Trump's desk, and he's expected to sign that next week, which is a good thing. There's some confusion about the MF farm market facilitation payments as to whether or not we're getting them. They announced that we would be getting our last payment from last year here, the last half of January, and then they just announced that they would not be giving any 2020 payments
for the 2020 crop year.
So that's the confusion. So I think we need a little clarification yet, and I haven't got it, but plan to get it here very quickly.
Okay. Tommy, you had a big meeting this week with all the salespeople here at West Point. I bet that's always exciting.
No, it was. We had our elite salesmen in, and we did some drill down on some new products, and we had a very good presentation on mental toughness and how to kind of get above the problems that we're seeing out there and control the volume and the noise. And it was very constructive. I think it went a long way for guys to understand that maybe a problem identified as a blessing in disguise, and how to build off those things and better understand yourself to better understand and help the farmer. So very exciting. We also had we talked about some new products that we're talking about, and more on the LLGT 27 and Enlist side coming, especially with the Elite 27 comment period that has taken place. So maybe you guys want to comment on that.
Sure. I just know, Ben, was talking to him about what our production plans are for actually it'd be the 2021 sales season and what products we're going to have, both on corn and soybeans. So we haven't announced those yet to the general public yet, but we'll be doing soon. But we always start with our sales people first. Yep. And in reference to the Elite 27, which if you're not familiar with Elite 27, it is in corn. It's called Balance herbicide. And that particular product is a pre-emerge on the Elite 27, the LLGT 27s, soybeans. And the EPA has started a comment period. BSF that's a BSF herbicide. And the comment period started January 15th, I believe, and expect a label by March 18th, if everything goes according to plan. However, then we have good news. The bad news is it's going to be a county by county approval, and a lot of it has to do with endangered species. In other words, because this product, the isoxafludol, is very active in the soil and stays in the soil a long time, gives you long control, but it also could potentially harm endangered species in nearby fields or next to fields. There's no counties in Iowa that will be permitted to use it this spring. No counties in Illinois, and 6 counties in Missouri. Yep. So we'll put that list up, but we encourage farmers to get on that EPA site and give a positive endorsement of this particular herbicide, and then BSF will be working to expand those counties as we get more practical experience in the field. But that brings us to the bigger question. Okay, 85% of the acres on corn, pretty much in Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri, get a HPPD herbicide put on them. And if Balance is one of the big players in that market, and when it goes through re-registration, which all herbicides have an expiration date and have to go through re-registration, as well, every herbicide. If this is the future of HPPDs, we're going to potentially lose that balance piece on the corn if the EPA sticks to their guns, like they did with Elite 27.
Under the current rules that we have.
So that speaks to the bigger thing that all herbicides, as they go through re-registration, are going to be under attack to either restrict them based on these endangered species laws and all this stuff. When we were at the Ag Land Farm Expo, or what's it called?
Land Expo.
Land Expo in Des Moines a little over a week ago. One of the speakers up there said the only new fungicides, insecticides, and potentially herbicides that would come out in the future have to be biological. And, right now, there is a lot of biologicals coming into the marketplace, but for plant root development and things like this. But that's a new frontier that none of us have a lot of experience with. Mm-hmm. So this is a scary time for farmers, and with our connections with the city folks and what they understand and what reality is, sometimes doesn't match up. Yeah. So anyhow, anything else to add to today's episode?
They'll learn, Joe.
They'll learn. I hope so. I just hope that we have good leaders that have common sense, and obviously there's nobody that doesn't want to protect the environment, but we also, I don't know about you, but I would like to eat 3 meals a day if possible.
Yeah. You got a corny joke for us this week?
Oh, yes, we got a corny joke. I'm glad you said that. We were remiss the last couple episodes not doing it. This one here is about a rope. Rope walks into the bar, sits down at the bar, and tells, "Hey, bartender, I'd like a drink." Bartender walks up to the rope and looks him over and says, "Sorry, we don't serve ropes in this bar." Well, dejected, the rope leaves, and he stands outside for a little bit, and he thinks, So he takes himself and he contortions himself and ties himself into a knot. He takes his head, the end of the rope, and just messes with it like crazy, walks back in, sits down. "Hey, bartender, I'd like a drink." Bartender walks up to him and says, "Weren't you the rope that just walked in here a few minutes ago?" And the rope responded, "Afraid not."
He's afraid not.
Afraid not.
I love it.
Afraid not.
Well,
That's good.
that'll get everybody click the station off. Yep. All right. Thanks for watching today. We really enjoy telling you what we know, and we appreciate your business. And then if you have comments or suggestions how to make this program better, we definitely would do that. But as always, be safe out there, and we'll see you next week. And be careful. Thanks.
Thank you.
From son of